for live and subsequent broadcasts available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller, and under the General Data Protection Regulations and the Data Protection Act of 2018, broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil our public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with Council's published policies available through the Council's website. Members of the Council are reminded that they should follow the Council's established meeting protocols, including the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants of the meeting, which may include members of the public who have also received invites to the meeting. Okay, do we have any apologies, substitutions or declarations of interest?
Convener, there are no apologies or substitutions. So I'll move to a roll call.
Okay.
Can the following councillors please indicate if they're present at the meeting? Councillor Brooks.
In chamber.
Councillor Cassidy.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Clockerty.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Crowder.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Curley.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Jackson.
Present remotely.
Councillor McCabe.
Present remotely.
Councillor McCormick.
In the chamber.
Provost Mackenzie.
In the chamber.
Councillor Quinn.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Robertson.
Present in the chamber.
Are there any declarations of interest?
Okay, thanks very much. Stuart, do you want to come before start?
Convener, through you, can I first of all apologise to members for the tardiness in respect of the issue of papers 6 and 7. Unfortunately, despite our best endeavours, extra entrances resulted in us only getting the information to populate the papers at very, very little. And for that, I can only apologise.
Okay, thanks, Stuart. Okay, going back to the agenda. Item number 2 is the 24-25 Environment Regeneration Revenue Budget and 23-24 outturn. Matt, you want to take us through this?
Yeah, thank you, Convener. As you've said, this is the normal revenue budget for 24-25. It is the first one after the summer recess, so it does include the 23-24 outturn information, which was a small spend of 34,000. Not very much compared to the size of the budget. We're also projecting for 24-25 an overspend at the moment of £168,000. The details of this are listed in section 3 in the appendices. I wouldn't tend to go through them all in an awful lot of detail, but obviously I'm happy to take any questions. The committee is then asked to note both the outturn and the projection for this year, and also note that there are ongoing reviews at the moment into the use of agency workers and also winter gritting, and these will be reported back to future committees. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, Matt, thanks very much. Paul, you're right on. Robert was not answer the question. So, okay. Any questions for Matt? Yes.
Thank you. With respect to the 23-24 outturn on flooding and emergency works and emergency maintenance. Also, the flooding and emergency works, I understand it's related to the flooding and stuff, but I'm struggling to what I would anecdotally have seen as being quite a mild winter, why we have an increase in winter maintenance costs. And just wondering, are we sure that the costs will be captured and that there may be some of these additional works related to the flooding and other emergency works that may be within that? I would just want to see in sort of future years whether or not we need to review how we're capturing this, because I'd like to try and see if there is a lot more costs to the emergency and flooding works that is properly captured within the budget.
Okay. Sure.
Properly captured within the budget, sorry.
You can be officers will ensure that all of the appropriate coding has been allocated to the appropriate code spends for travelling, recognising that we are going to carry out a review in terms of winter and agency costs, and we'll ensure that that's the case certainly going forward. And if there are any variances involved in that, we'll bring that to the budget.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. Okay. Don't see any questions in the chat. We agree with recommendations?
Agreed.
Okay, item number 3 is the Environment Regeneration Capital Programme from 24 to 28 programme support. Eric?
Hey, can I just check you can hear me okay, Convener?
Yeah, I can hear you, yeah.
Yeah, good. Your audio issues earlier. Thanks, Convener. There's quite a lot in the report. with multiple projects at various stages. The detail is in the various updates, and many of the projects have progressed further since the report was drafted. In terms of the overall expenditure and projections against the 2024-25 approved budget, the report advancement was noted in the report.
Peter, I'm not hearing you.
Eddie, I'm sorry, we did hear you at the beginning, but we can't hear you. We can't hear you now.
Maybe move close to the mic.
Can you hear me now?
It's an echo there.
Are you a wee bit closer to the mic, Eddie?
How's that?
Yeah, okay, that seems better, okay.
Sorry about that. There's quite a lot in the report with multiple projects at various stages. Detail was in the various updates, and many of the projects have progressed further since the report was drafted. In terms of the overall expenditure and projections against the 2024.
See, I'm losing it.
Do you hear it? No. Ed, I'm sorry, we're struggling to pick you up. Could you join us? Could you join us, Eddie?
No, you just stop.
Hope you're not in Malaga.
Can you hear me now?
Hey.
That's
Yeah,
clear
that's
up.
better.
Clear up.
It's better than trying to run across to the chambers, I think.
Right,
Okay, so there's quite a lot of detail in the report with multiple projects at various stages. I won't go over those all individually, and many of those have progressed further since the project was since the report was drafted. So in terms of the overall expenditure and projections against the 2024-25 approved budget, we're reporting advancement as noted in the report, and that's mainly on the Westwick Hall Street project with the confirmation of the phase 2 works, which are now ongoing, and on the Clune Park related to the proposed progression of demolitions. That's what the committee approved the recommendations, and myself and any of the other officers present who contributed to the report are happy to answer any question.
Okay, Eddie, thank you. Question for Eddie.
Thank you. Just with respect to Clune Park Regeneration, I know there's what's said in the paper before us, but I noticed there was a deadline here for Tuesday, 6th of August, with respect to the dangerous building notices. Would officers be able to give an update with respect to that deadline?
Sure,
Neil, any update on the notices? Is that through his side of the directorate?
Happy to provide the response, convener and to councillor. Following the deadline on the 6th of August, there was no appeals that we were aware of submitted to the response to the dangerous building notices.
Okay, Chris.
Okay, thank you. So I suppose that I'm conscious that this isn't a public session, but what will be the next stage?
Through you, convener, there was a tranche of dangerous buildings notices issued, which expired on the date which has been voted. There are another 2 tranches which are out there, and obviously there's an appeal process associated with them. So they're due to expire in due course. One went out, I think it was last week, and the others went out this week. We are currently in the process of tendering for a demolition contractor. And once that tender exercise is concluded, we'll then take action initially on the church and Clune Park School, and then we'll move on to the dangerous buildings, or the buildings which are affected by dangerous buildings.
Thank you. And if I may have this to be supplementary on that. So thank you for your indulgence, Fiona. Just respect to the Clune Park School. I've raised previously committees to the architectural features that are on the school, and there's an opportunity to try and save as much of that as possible. Respect to the roundels for Queen Victoria, Prince Albert, and there's a number of things related to the ships as well. I'm just wondering if it's possible for officers to advise how much of the building that they hope to put aside for future use. Conscious of the fact that that's what's happened in the past, Garble House, for instance, and Garble Island, that a lot of that has been retained and is currently within the sugar sheds. So I'd like to see the opportunities to try and retain as much of the fabric of these buildings as possible.
Sure.
Clearly, in order to demolish the properties, we had to seek authorisation from the Historical Park of Scotland, and there was nothing identified in respect of the church And there were the two roundels in respect of Queen Victoria and Prince Albert on the schools. The tender specification is based on that, and we recognise that the more we try to save, the higher the cost is, because it's a different means of the emulsion. If members are minded to attempt to save more, then that's an instruction that we can take from committee, and but we will have to go back through the tender process.
Paul, were you next?
Yeah, just a different subject. Just double checking was. Yeah, I just wanted to take the opportunity to go under the People Renewal project that their officers got nominated for a Consular Excellence Award for the work that will be the shortlist. So I think it should be worthwhile noting that and congratulate the officers making the shortlist. Hopefully, the next time we meet, I can will be congratulating officers for winning the excellence.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Pass on to officers. John?
Thank you, Convener. Just refer to 3.10, which is on page 16. It's the play area strategy, and it mentions about the consultation of the Smithton play area has been concluded. Now, it's just to get to identify which Smithton, because in years gone by, the old Western SMT buses, they had signs on them saying Smithton, and they terminated at the start of Cumberland Road. We also have Smithton cottages on Inverkip Road, and the land behind that was where the former Smithton Farm used to be. That land was then developed for the Ravenscraig Hospital, and subsequently now comes under Oak Tree and Link Housing. But would I be right in saying that the Smithton referred to actually was the area that was agreed between Inverclyde Council and the Lateral Braeside and Branston Community Council?
So, yes.
It is actually, and that's lovely. If I just come in with another question as well, it's just to seek again a wee bit of clarity on it, and it's 3.29, and that's the Tarbert Street. That's in page 19, and it just says there that the cycling, walking, and safer streets, and they're saying that the drawings have been finalised and submitted for external consulting. It says Tarbert Street to Battery Park. Now, I understand that a small part of that land between on Tarbert Street belongs to the executor of the owner of the Admiralty Jetty, and we know that there's been big issues there regarding the jetty. But part of the deeds, I understand, also includes a small portion of land in the seawall on Tarbert Street. Has any negotiations been held with Sandy Burke Jr. As to the proposed development on the land?
For you, Convener, I'm not aware of any negotiations that have been undertaken in that respect. And again, when the officers have been preparing proposals, they'll take into account ownership positions, etc. So they would like to try and avoid any of those issues, because those have tended to delay these types of projects significantly in the past. So I haven't personally seen these proposals yet. I don't think they've been issued out for members, for information as yet. They're not quite there. But I can certainly undertake to check that position with the officers and come back.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
I don't know if anything can be done about the sound, but the sound quality is pretty poor. Here today, I don't know if we can start looking at it. I know the leaders expressing concerns over it as well. Okay, I'm going to try that. Okay. So, Chris, back to your point, are you happy with the response you got for sure?
Yeah, I think I must admit at the top possible we'd like to get the other rounds in there, the ships, but I'm not going to make a thing about it. I think it would be nice if we could get them, but I don't want to really be a point of varying contracts. So if it's an easy ask, then that'd be good. But
Can I make the ask? Sure.
If the contractor is capable of doing that without influencing the programme, and of course we'll ask them to do so.
Okay, Marcus. Okay. Okay, anybody else? One.
Yeah, thanks. I think I'll ask the Plume Park one first, just so we don't break up, and then I'll go into my other ones. So you were saying there were 3 tranches in the demolition orders and the dates, expiry dates. Dangerous buildings notice, sorry, thank you for keeping it. So the first tranche, is that the 138 or is the 138 split across the 2? We're just trying to understand of what percentage is the 138 in terms of the whole estate.
In terms of the numbers, 138 is the first tranche.
Right.
And then there's approximately 110 in the second tranche, and then there's 30 in the last tranche.
Okay.
Now that's the extent to which you can survey to date, and that's the ones where we have independent structural engineers reports in respect of each of those properties, as well as the planning and building standards manager surveys of the properties. So clearly, the initial start in terms of the dangerous buildings aspects is that it's a building standards issue, and then if we want further verification, we engage an independent structural engineer, and that's what has been done. So not all of the 430 something properties in Plume Park have been surveyed yet. We're intending surveying them, but it's an iterative process, and we're effectively doing it in block where possible.
Right, so that's the order. So that's why 138 were chosen. Yeah. Yeah, and not because they're easier or harder or what, it's literally making your way from a geography point of view through the estate.
Convener, Councillor Quinn, none of them are easy.
Yeah, well, it's Plume Park, you know, that's harder.
Yes, these are people's properties, and we want to ensure that the appropriate information to allow us to take things forward in an appropriate way.
Okay. Okay, that's great, thanks. I'll move on to the easier questions. Yeah, so I had a little short it and then I forgot to bring it. It's on my desk, so where I am, so they're not really in any order. So the first one is under current drive, so 3.34. So I think in March we got agreement that we go to public consultation, and I think the time scale at that time was given was a couple of months to get that consultation out. So that consultation didn't happen. We're kind of now in August and in September. I had a very awkward conversation at the community council meeting, so obviously this is a huge priority for the community. It's been on their list for now, I think 11, 12 years trying to get a solution there. So I think the thing was they thought the consultation was coming sooner than it did. So I'm just trying to get some sort of reassurance that that can be pushed up the priority list and we can get things moving on that consultation.
Yeah.
So
you convener, yeah, we've recognised that the timescales that were provided in the previous report are an indication of where we would like to have been with it. Unfortunately, just because of our priorities and pressures, we've been juggling quite a few different projects. The officers are currently working on this one, and it does need to get stage.
I'm sorry, we're not hearing you. We're just not hearing you.
Can I suggest that perhaps if Councillor Quinn has another question for another officer in this film, and it would make his move the chamber?
I'll see if I've got any that are not for it. Any random person want to answer that? Let's get good. So it's 3.13 under this Lincoln site, so we just noted progress on there. I've had an update. It's also featured in agenda item 10, which is a sort of nature restoration proposals. So it's great that St Lincoln site's been tied into that sort of wider aim, which is fantastic. But again, I'm concerned, so the indication I've had about the Sydney things won't actually be developed or worked on until into next year. And if we go into next year, that will be 4 years since the funding has been allocated. So the community are really keen to see this site developed. The money is ready, sitting there to make a start on that, but we're getting pushed into next year. So it's great that we see all these other projects coming along, but my concern is, you know, that one's kind of pushed down the line because we've got other projects under that unit as well. I don't know if it's, no, I don't know if it's.
Neil, do you want to come in that?
Yeah, so the timescales provided are based on the works and with the Green Action Trust that Kenny Lang's been taking forward with his team. I can take that away and go and explore how and if there's any possibilities to accelerate the works if possible.
Yeah, just in line with it, it's been there for a long, in effect it's been in the queue first, so it's just to try and get it a little bit of priority, because that's the danger, is it kind of gets lost, especially because there is funding, significant funding sitting there waiting for spent. That would be, it's just a matter, really it seems cut and dry, it's just my plea there if we can try and move these things along. I've got, I think I went into the yours, Graham, which is Westbrook Hall Street, so I hope I'm not asking the question. So it's really great reading a bit about Westbrook Hall Street, especially about the outstanding snagging works, and someone's looking at the snagging list, because I've had a number of people contact me, and that's the idea is it's yours, so you'll be glad that you've arrived. We're just talking figures about Westbrook Hall Street, and the fact there is a snagging list in some of those works. I think I've been saying to people, let's be patient to the projects kind of near the end and see if that's done, which is good because there's been a number of conversations, especially older people, those that are visually impaired, and a concern about the unevenness, the sloppiness, and especially I know pedestrians have got priority. But the walkways, where the walkway kind of walks across, where we've got the cars coming along and a pathway continues, and there's no natural stop-start for cars, you know, so if you're visually impaired, you can't really see the cars coming. So it was just as part of that snagging works and whatever will be someone looking at it from that public safety and disability point of view. Thanks.
Yeah, for you, convener. I think these matters have been raised. Maybe not at this committee, but certainly through the Green Town Centre Regeneration Forum, and officers have responded in terms of these details, have accepted details that they are in other towns and centres across Scotland and the UK. I think people do have to get used to a slightly different way of it being set up. There is a kind of learning curve there, but there was an undertaking that things like signage would be reviewed. As soon as the work is complete, there's a post-completion review, there's improvements that need to be made, and that's certainly something that we can take forward. And the snagging is something that's an ongoing review. We have got engineers on site basically every day, overseeing the work that's happening with the contractor. That's a continual process. They are coming back around to doing the kind of snagging from the first phase, but again, it will be done concurrently with the phase 2 works. So we'll have to get to the very end of the project before we can really see the full effect, but that'll take until March next year. So it's an ongoing long-term project. Okay, and just the last thing, it's just that, what is a compensation event? It was just I'd seen that and it sounded really exciting. Compensation event. So could you explain just that? Yes, you can be it's just a way of expressing a variation to the contract through the NEC engineering type of contract. They call it a compensation event. Other contracts that we use call it a variation. So it's simply a variation to the works for the second phase. Okay. It's not very exciting, I'm afraid.
Thank you.
It's not part of it.
I thought we were going to get some money.
First time somebody's ever explained that, it says that's exciting.
Okay, thanks very much, Convener. Yeah, moving attention to the ramp and the balance between the ramp and disability access, I just don't know how those two things come together.
constituents have in representation regarding Lower Bank Street, where it meets Cathcart Street. So it's got a heavy footfall, obviously, to our wonderful town buildings, being Town Hall and also Stoke Mall. But the challenge for people on wheelchairs or even other disabilities is very challenging due to the state of the road. My understanding is it isn't in the ramp because it's suitable for motor vehicles, but constituents say it's certainly not suitable for those people who have a disability to cross Lower Bank Street at the Well Park Midkirk. I just wondered, is there any mechanism where obviously if it's not in the ramp, how we can obviously increase or obviously make additional repair to Lower Bank Street?
This is obviously what it's coming to a bit cold, so we need to obviously have officers go and have a look at this and maybe report back on whether or not
The first time I've done that as well. Okay, right. now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, acknowledge that.
Okay, anyone else? No?
That's right.
Sorry, Chris, let me see.
I was having a good day there. Just with respect to the road study for Inverclyde, it says when it comes to subsequent committees, we've had this road study on the proposed for what seems like a number of years. I presume it isn't, but I was just wondering, do officers have an idea about what future committee it's likely to come to?
Yeah, I think we've been I have confirmation the officers, the modelling work has been completed by the consultant. They've now got that and I'm reviewing it, and we're hopeful that we'll bring it to the next committee. And I know previously discussed whether or not we could tie it in with an all members briefing. We'll consider whether or not that's something we want to do as well.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, can we agree on recommendations?
Great.
Okay. Okay, item number 4 is the non-domestic rates and support to local businesses. Neil?
Thank you, Convener. I'll just take you through a quick overview of the paper and following which happy to take questions. So this paper is following from the January Policy and Resources paper on the same subject, which agreed to changes in the policy application of the empty property relief. In the same paper, remitted a paper to be brought to the Environment Regeneration Committee, dealing with how any residual funds would be dealt with in terms of supporting economic development. So this is the fulfilment of that paper back in January, and this paper is proposing the use of the residual fund, which amounts to £94,000, and proposing that is dealt with through offering property support grant to empty property, commercial properties being brought back into use. In terms of the nature of the grant, the service already operates a number of business support grants and property grants, so it's well-established mechanism and conditions related to the same around application and awarding of grants. The proposal is for the £94,000 to be used to award grants of up to £10,000 subject to criteria being met, and to support empty property, commercial properties being brought back into use. The paper obviously only deals with the residual funding amount and not the initial decision to policy and resources. So it's a relatively simple proposal in terms of proposals to deal with that residual £94,000. Nonetheless, I'm happy to take any questions on the paper, and I'll leave it at that, Convener.
Okay, Neil, thanks very much. Chris?
It's just obviously the 94,000 so we set aside and get maximum £10,000. I'm just wondering, how would we have sight about the effectiveness of the policy, and whether or not there be a subsequent or a regular meeting, a report to the committee to identify how this has had a positive impact, if it has, or how we would view the policy if it hadn't had the same impact we thought it was going to have.
Sure.
You can give the officers intention about like 6 months with the report and effective the utilisation of the funds.
Thank you.
No.
No, for me it's just welcome. I think we know how tough it is out there. So any funding we can set aside, we find overspends and we find that in area funding to welcome to put into businesses and private businesses to be on the line. With this one especially, so many businesses, so a great amount of money. Yeah, well aware of that. But I think having that money would be welcome. We have to try and get into policy into use.
Yeah, it's good enough stuff. Okay, can we agree?
Great.
Okay. Item number 5, the shared prosperity update report. Neil.
Thank you, Convener. Again, in a similar fashion, I'll give you a quick overview of the paper and happy to take any questions following that. So this report is providing an update on the progress of Shared Prosperity Fund projects and advises members of mechanisms to optimise the fund and to ensure spend is maximised within the programme. Just for background, the committee approved in April 2023 17 projects across 3 themes of communities in place, local business and people and skills, and a further 6 projects were approved under the multiply theme. In terms of the progress of projects, projects within community in place theme and people and skills theme are and have been progressing well. There's a number of delivery partners associated with those project themes that are supporting delivery, particularly through the people and skills fund, and those include the Trust, Stepwell Financial, Fitness, Enable, Street League, CVS and Recliding Park Lee branching out. In terms of the structure of the setup of the programme, clearly the third parties have needed some time to establish the procurement and delivery strategies and whatnot, and those are now in place. So we're confident that those will continue to fully spend out the programme as projected. In terms of the local business theme, the majority of the projects are progressing well, and the use of the business grants, as I've mentioned in the previous item, will offer additional flexibility to be able to expend the funds within the theme to ensure the optimisation of the outcomes and the spend. A couple of things to highlight within the local business theme, referring back to the May Environment Regeneration Committee around the West Blackhall Street item. There was an agreement to expend £100,000 to support West Blackhall Street businesses. In launching that grant and estimating the demand, the take-up was such that we expended £150,000 of that and determined under delegation that there was a more appropriate theme to take that funding from in terms of business resilience. So that fully spent out £150,000 of the Business Resilience Fund. That was against the backdrop of, within the paper in May, it was indicated that Multiply might be a source of funding for that. However, challenges with Multiply nationally, environment of funds from that theme have been recognised. So the spend on West Blackhall Street has assisted to spend out another Business Resilience Fund. And just an additional commentary on the environmental priorities aspect, and it's noted in the paper that the communities in place, one of a £30,000 underspend in one of the business items will be directed to support a tree planting strategy, which is in development and emergence, without which there would be no means for delivery. So that will be brought back to future Environment and Regeneration Committee. However, the proposal is to move £30,000 to that. As I said, I mentioned that the Multiply funding, which is delivered through partners, has been challenging nationally. In terms of government guidance, environment is difficult to other programmes, and government don't appear to be supportive of moving to other programmes, nor have government indicated that the programme will extend beyond March 25. So there is an underspend in that, and we'll monitor and explore avenues to expend the fund. However, there is a risk around if the guidance from government doesn't alter, that there could be some handback of the funds there, and we'll report on that at programme closure and as we proceed. Just in terms of the wrapping up the item, the Shared Prosperity Fund ends in March 2025. At this point in time, there is no indication of any extension or replacement fund for Shared Prosperity funding, and officers are of the understanding it's unlikely that decision that would be made until after the autumn budget. I don't have anything else to say. I probably covered that reasonably comprehensively, but again, happy to take questions, and I'll pass back to you, Convener.
Okay, thanks, Neil. Elizabeth.
Thank you, Convener. You've done yourself no favours here. I've got more questions than I had when I started, when I first put my light on. So my first set of questions relate to paragraph 4.5 in the report. Given, notwithstanding the fact that the second half of the paragraph notes that we're already on track with or have exceeded proposed outcomes and outputs, which is really, really good. it's perplexing to see at the top of the paragraph that there have been issues with recruitment of employees, procurement of services, and in terms of third-party operators establishing arrangements. I don't really know what that means. I wouldn't mind getting a bit of sense of what that means. But it seems odd to have put together such what seemed at the time like a comprehensive range of projects and programmes, and then a whole bunch of them can't be done. They're not ready to go. So I'm not keen on that being how we do things with time limited funding. So I guess that's a question that I have. I wouldn't mind knowing about what the issues in establishment arrangements means. And then I've got another question which is really just on the back of what Neil has said about nothing happening post March 25. To suggest that Inverclyde could have ever done without European structural funds which were in place is absurd. This was a modest investment to mitigate that no longer being there, and I would suggest to be able to do things and move forward without something that's replacing both of these is also absurd. So I'm hoping that we're lobbying as hard as we can for some type of replacement, because obviously the removal of structural funds was the result of Brexit. Something was put in place which wasn't as good, I don't think, but has helped us, and for nothing to be there after March 2025 just seems, as I say, not a great thing.
Neil, what commitment?
Yeah, thank you, Convener, and thank you for the questions there. Just in reverse order, we are in repeated engagement with governments on across a range of funding sources. So the commentary that you've made is shared, and obviously the value of these projects is high, and it creates a lot of participation, a lot of broad activity development and delivery. So the situation is of being unknown is frustrating. We continue to engage in government with that. Just in specific reference to paragraph 4.5, what I would just highlight is that I think the intent of the report is firstly, it's certainly not to offer any criticism of third-party delivery partners. The partners are required to deliver this fund in its full and in its round, and partners are doing a good job of progressing those. At the moment, we've got confidence the parties that are stakeholders in delivery are on track to deliver. It was just simply highlighting that at the early part of the programme, there was time required to be taken to establish mechanisms for those third parties to get up and running. Those are all in place now, so there is no concern around the capacity of third parties at the moment. And just to reiterate and close on, it's intended to infer no criticism of parties who have been helpful and done a good job in supporting delivery of the Shared Prosperity Fund projects.
Okay, well,
I think so. Yeah.
okay. Stephen.
Thanks, Chair. And maybe just to reiterate the point I made in the chat, it is very difficult to hear some people in the room, that's members and officers. I don't know whether it's down to the distribution of the microphones or not. Councillor Crowther is particularly clear. You're pretty clear, and Councillor Brooks is pretty clear, but everybody else, it's a struggle. Be perfect. Just in terms of the report, it's a helpful report to obviously give us an overview of where we are. But I would like for the next meeting of the committee a more detailed report on the individual projects, just to see the progress, and that maybe would address some of the issues we've got in terms of the progress of those. So it would be good to get that detailed project report. And I suppose just in terms of the point Councillor Robertson made about the uncertainty going forward, I think we have to recognise there was a change of government 8 weeks ago. The public finances are in a mess. And as we'll see probably in the course of this meeting, there's uncertainty also over funding from the Scottish Government as well. So I certainly would like to see either a continuation of the Shared Prosperity Fund or an alternative to the Shared Prosperity Fund, and I'd hope that we would see decisions on that sooner rather than later. Perhaps it will have to wait till after the budget on the 30th of October. But there are huge uncertainties around public finances at this point in time, and unfortunately that's going to be a theme, I'm sure, both in this meeting and future meetings.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. Okay, can we agree on that?
Great.
Great. Right, thank you. Okay. Item number 6 is the levelling up fund update report. Neil.
Again, thank you, convener, and again in the usual fashion, I'll take you through an overview of key points of the report and hand back for questions thereafter. So this is a paper for noting in reference to specifically what the project that's related is for, as members will be aware, but just for recapping, it includes redesigning and lowering of the A78 flyover to ground level to improve access and create better connections to town centre, placing Bill Ring roundabout with new low-level road and again connecting to town centre, developing new public spaces for the local community, and modernising retail space in town centre by demolition of the A78 dual carriageway, 40% of the Oak Mall and Hector McNeil House and Hunter's Place toilets, the revenue implications of which are noted in the finance section of the report. I'll cover the main aspects of this paper, including timeline, cost situation and communications, and provide some detail to accompany the paper, just by way of highlighting key issues. So in terms of the timeline, it had been intention to present to the August Environment Regeneration Committee, i.e. today, a contract award for the proposed project. However, the project is not advanced to that stage at the current time, so I'm therefore disappointed to advise that our report is not in a position to be able to seek award of a contract. Having worked intensely with between the project team within the council and the wider project, comprising of contractor and cost design and project management consultants, the primary contractor and the support consultants are all now committed to reaching a contract award for the project in January 2025. Whereupon officers will report back to E&R to award the contract and progress or commence the physical works for the project. As a result of the delay to the contract award works in the project, the project will now move from late 24 commencement of works in demolition to early 25 commencement of demolition works, as outlined in the paper, with the completion of works anticipated in summer 2026 for full project closure not 2026. So that represents the key milestones for the project as we're at the moment, and as I said, with the commitment of the main works contractor and all support consultants committed to that timeline. In terms of the funding requirement, the government initially awarded the funding on the basis of completion of the project by March 2026, and therefore that won't be met. And the engagement that we've had to date through officers with UK government funders has provided comfort that an extended timeline such that I've outlined will be acceptable, and therefore formal procedures will be followed to secure that extension. As above, as mentioned, the contractor and design team, project management and quantity surveying consultants are all committed to the programme, and that is having robustly scrutinised the critical path for the project and the contract strategy in order that it aligns with Green Book business case methodology, which is what will be required from UK government, and also which I would highlight is in order to meet the governance requirements of the council. So that's where we are in terms of the timeline of the project. In terms of cost analysis at the moment, the project has an agreed in principle design with Transport Scotland, and the analysis of the costs related to that design provided from the council's project management and quantity surveying consultants has provided feedback that the envelope for the project is sufficient to meet the cost of the project with some headroom for contingency. So that's the basis on which we understand the costs at present. However, what I would say is that the coming months in the finalisation of design proposals for the works will be critical to monitor the costs, monitor risks associated with costs, value engineer the design, and ensure that we retain cost control of the project. Just finally turning to communications, obviously as I've highlighted that the demolition will not start this side of Christmas. It will be subject to the contract award as per contractor commitment in the early part of 2025, and therefore a communications plan has been developed alongside the project and is shared with the report. And that is effectively to control a high-level messaging around how we communicate and promote the project, promote the timelines around the project, and communicate with the public around the implications of what will be happening when works commence and what's happening through the construction works. And officers are meeting. I've got regularly frequent programme meetings with communication teams to manage the communications around the project. And those will just fall in line with the timeline that's been developed and agreed with all parties involved in the project. So I've probably given that a reasonably comprehensive overview of the project, including reference to a lot of content which is in the report, but obviously necessary at this stage given the update that we're providing is not a contract award. It's the revised timelines proposed. So I'm happy to leave it at that, convener, and again in the usual fashion, happy to take any questions around the project.
Okay, Neil, thanks very much. Stephen.
Thanks, convener. Thanks to Neil for the comprehensive overview of the report. I'm sure officers are as frustrated as me and yourself, convener, that we're no further forward with this project. And I think it is important that we do get a bit of more of an understanding as why we've not been able to get to the point where officers can present a report to take us to the next stage in the tender process. And I suppose it is about also seeking reassurance that those revised milestones will be achieved. This is a very important, very high profile project for the council and indeed for the community, and we really need to see this project delivered next year. And so I'm looking for that assurance and a wee bit of understanding as to why we've not been able to get to this stage despite the best endeavours of officers.
Thank you, through you, convener. Yeah, Councillor Kay, but I think the points you've made are reflected as well by officers. And in terms of the assurances that we've got with the contractor and all the consultant support, it is a large scale and complex project, so requires multidisciplinary support to the council for that. As I said, officers, and that includes the corporate director, the physical assets manager, and myself, have been meeting very frequently with the wider project team just to pull apart the critical path for the project and optimise, by days and weeks where we can and need to, the timeline to make it as to optimise it from the current standpoint that we're in, and we've over recent weeks and as was highlighted earlier, up till quite late on in terms of the issue of the paper, been working with the teams to ensure that they are all committed to the timelines that we're proposing today. So that is as much of an assurance as we can give at the moment, is that every party in this is committed to the timeline that we've worked to, and we will continue to put the appropriate governance in place to monitor and track the progress of the project. Just that probably one of the key aspects of the delay in terms of not being able to award a contract was that I mentioned the contract strategy that we've had to optimise. Initially, the proposal was around commencing demolition this side of Christmas, but in doing so, the initial programme had been to award that contract without full design and cost on the remainder of the works, which is, as I said, not compliant with with UK government funding methodology. So we've had to revise that in order that we've got confidence in sight of the entire project cost and scope of works before we can award parts of the contract. So that's been probably one of the key aspects of optimising that we've been doing in the recent weeks and months.
Okay, Neil, thank you. You okay with that, Stephen?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, okay. True.
Thank you, convener. As you can understand, convener, this is a project that I'm familiar with, but I'm not close to as to what's the realisation of it is, we see that the Oak Mall is being reduced by 40%, and therefore will not have as big a footprint. Can officers confirm that the surrounding area, the periphery of the Oak Mall and the area around Hector McNeill House and all the places that are getting demolished, is that all in control of the council? Do we own all that land? And if not, what parts do we not control?
So you can hear, the area of the Oak Mall that's been demolished will fall to the council. So the ownership will then fall to the council, and we will then carry the public realm works to that, and then that will be maintained by the council going forward.
So we own all the periphery of the land round about the Oak Mall.
With the only exception is on the A78 and the transport interchange at the building. So where Transport Scotland have, if you imagine on the A78 there's the raised section. So what will then fall down will become the road, and that will be the responsibility of Transport Scotland. The replacement of the building is a signalised traffic junction, and the responsibility of that signalised traffic junction will be the council's, Transport Scotland's. So it's where it becomes public realm, it will be the council's, where it's road, it will be Transport Scotland.
Okay.
Okay, right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my first question first.
That's a good idea.
I know, questions have been asked, I've got a wee bit of a supplementary based on what was said there. So I think it's good that we've got this proposal coming forward. I share the frustrations that we're not able to progress and part some of the design. I can understand what some of the works, but I can understand why that is the case. I think looking at the timescales that now been put forward to talk about demolition and rebuild of the road in summer next year, which probably will fit in trying to minimise a bit of disruption, which probably makes a bit of sense, and minimise not starting until after Christmas. Hopefully we'll maximise trades in the town centre after Christmas as well. So it might there is benefits from it. I was looking at some of the programme issues, and from my understanding, it's still got go through building warrant and planning. Can officers advise when they expect this to be, and whether or not is this a risk to the project if there is any delays in building warrant and planning stage?
Well, through convener, without wanting to compromise the head of regeneration planning and public protection, answering that question. The building work and planning that's required is only for the element of works which is outside the existing consent. So that relates to the facade and the new facade of the Oak Mall, and any works within the Oak Mall. The rest of it is within the scope of the original planning consent, which members will recall was granted for the demolition of Hector McNeill House and environs, and that's what we've relied on to do.
And just going back to what the Provost was saying about the land, can you advise with respect to the car park behind the Hector McNeill House, would that become council's, or would that remain somebody else?
The King Street car park is not within the scope of the Levelling Up Fund, but we are engaged with negotiations in respect of the acquisition of that with Gomer, and if you want me to go any further, I would probably want to go into private session.
That's fair.
Okay.
Yes, I just was going to mention the King Street car park. Central Holding try to get it for the last 20 years, it seems. No, firstly, we're all disappointed that we can't see progress on it. But if you stand back and look at it, it says £22 million. It's £22 million project that we're saying is going to be completed by. It's an incredible amount, an incredible scope of work that's put on here, and it's one of the things that Neil's obviously brought on Jennifer as well. The amount of work we've gone through and keeping the town centre regeneration forum up to date as well is always much appreciated. I'm still excited about the project. I think it's going to transform the centre of Greenock for time to come, and I think it's going to change the whole area. I think the road layout is going to change the whole area as well. We were talking about and Saint Farah. We were talking about the town centre plans, and we're mentioning the old Greenox Charette, and we're mentioning one of the things about the Greenox Charette used to be about the demolition or partial demolition of the old wall, about the bringing down of the Bull Ring roundabout, and about connections to the sea, and all these things are coming to fruition. So I recognise we're not at the tender stage yet, but I know we're almost there, and I know Neil and Jennifer have been working tirelessly to do that. So I'm looking forward to, in 2 years' time, when complete report to this, and hopefully we'll get it done in 2 years' time, because that is one of the bottom 2 years to come, and there'll be some change within and climate within that. So thanks for the reports, and thanks for the work done today.
Okay, Jim, thank you. Stephen, you want to come back in? No, I'm just waiting.
Was all you on there?
Go on, one.
Yeah, thanks. I've just got a quick question under 4.3. It's just so I can understand in my head. So it says in January 2025, detailed design complete and tender costs submitted to Inverclyde Council. Then it says spring 25 demolition wall and Headton Nails. So has the contract, well, by that time, will the contract be awarded to the demolition team? Because I'm just thinking project costs, tender costs submitted January, demolition spring. It seems, when I'm reading it, I'm thinking that seems quite a time scale. So is the demolition contract already in place? It doesn't have to go through a tender process, but there's such a tight couple of months there.
Through your convener, that's engaging Councillor Quinn. As we alluded to in his introduction, the demolition contractor has been engaged and has priced the works.
Right.
But what we can't do is we can't demolish something if we don't know that we can afford the whole scheme. So we know what the demolition costs are today,
Right.
and we could appoint today, but that's not good, because if we demolish elements, for example, of the old wall, and we can't actually realise the scheme, then that would not be satisfactory.
Yeah, so that's just separate, that part, the demolition part separate. That in my head, I was thinking that design cost is the whole project, you know, and that all needs, the contracts all need to be in place for all those things before spring, which obviously is a bit.
Can I just provide a wee bit of clarity that the demolition contract will be a works package within the overall works? So we'll make an award to the state contractor, and they'll be responsible for the demolition, the road, making good, the public realm and everything else. But the first part of the works will be the demolition contract, and we're, as I said, we're well advanced with that demolition contract.
Yeah, so they're kind of ready to go. So that gives me reassurance that they're ready to go, because it is such a tight time space. Right, thanks.
Okay. Neil, would you want to come in there? Are you okay?
No, thanks, convener. The points have been covered.
Right, okay, so.
Yeah, thanks, Ross. Can I get clarity for us on Clyde Square? It's a wonderful civic space. In fact, today we had the recovery community using it, and obviously we have remembrance events now. Obviously, if nothing's going to start till 2025, that's fine. But obviously, the 2 years while demolition is going to be happening, will Clyde Square be the appropriate civic space that the province and the council can use? And if not, is officers considering alternative?
Sure.
You can be a bring proposals back to committee in due course for that. Okay. If you think about the end result in the south side of Clyde Square, our aspirations are for it to be a college campus, and if not that, then it would be a housing location. We've got a demolition contract to bring it down, but ultimately it will be granced until a final solution is found for that area. So looking at it, it will be available, but we'll come back with the proposals.
To be honest, I just think that's during the demolition. So if there was a civic event while a building is coming down, obviously, you know, is Clyde Square going to be available to the province of the council or not?
You can you recognise that we're doing works above this building at this moment in time, and there are things where it's acceptable and things which it's not. So therefore we'll bring back proposals during the demolition process, it will not be available because we have to have safe work zones. But let's let Officer bring that proposal, please. Listen.
That's fine.
Okay. Okay, can we agree recommendations? Great. Okay, item number 7 is the Glasgow City Deal Inverset Final Business Case Submission Report. Neil, this is what the Neil show today.
Thanks again, Convener. Yep, and more of the same, a quick overview and I'll hand back for questions. So this report is presenting the full business case for the draft full business case for the Inverkip City Deal project. So that includes proposals to form a T-junction at Bruaker Junction to support the unlocking of the former power station, Scottish Power site, as a significant economic opportunity, and formation of signalised junctions at the access to Inverkip Marina and Main Street. In terms of the process for business cases, full business case follows an outline business case which you've previously considered. So I just want to highlight some of the changes from what you've previously considered on this project. So the design proposals vary from the OBC in terms of what was presented back to ENR in terms of the Bruaker Junction particularly has been proposed in the full business case as a signalised junction rather than a roundabout, and that's a result of effectively shortlisting and optioneering, which is required from a technical perspective through the business cases and design processes to reach effectively what is the optimal solution, both from operations and cost perspective. And so that is what's presented in the full business case. In terms of that particular junction, it's designed to be able to accommodate lights. It's installed at the 200th, easy for me to say, residential dwelling to be constructed on the site that will be opened up through the development. So that will happen in time, and in the meantime, it's the wider scheme providing optimisation of transport flow and safety arrangements within the locality. So it's providing a range of positives in that respect. In terms of the programme, and as set out in the report, it's anticipated that subject to approval of the business case and subsequent ratification of the business case following submission to the PMO, the project would commence in Q1 2024-25, i.e. the start of next year, and be completed by Q3 25-26, i.e. the end of next year, in calendar terms. In terms of the cost implications of the project, the proposed headline budget for works and inclusive of contingency, professional fees, etc., is 4.15 million. So again, I would highlight that is an increase of £350,000 from the OBC, which was previously considered, and this is primarily due to the requirement to stage the works of the programme to be agreeable to Transport Scotland, and that includes the staggering of temporary lights to minimise impact of the project development and construction on the flow of traffic and safety arrangements. So that's had some minor increase in the timescale for the works, but they're all within that headline programme that I've highlighted. In terms of meeting the additional funding requirement, that will be secured through headline remaining funding in Inverclyde City Deal Fund, with the only additional funding impact for the council being meeting the 14% share of the proportion of the £350,000, which is a total of lower than the 1% of the entire project cost. That gives a financial profile, and it is set out in the paper, of City Deal funding contribution of 3.58 million, 86.3% of the project allocation, and an Inverclyde Council contribution through RAMP and the capital programme of £0.57 million, equating to 13.7% of the project budget, and that's the total 4.15 million allocation. Overall, the project has significant economic benefit, as is fully detailed in the economic section of the full business case, but that includes 400 construction jobs, 120 follow-on jobs, 28 million construction gross value added impact, £4 million annual ongoing operational gross value added impact for Inverclyde, and £6 million for the city region. And in addition, and it's not to be downplayed, the benefit to the road layout and network of the the improvements that we made, which will be felt upon completion of the works next year. Again, I'll leave it there. With that, the full business case is obviously comprehensive and extensive as they're required to be. So there's plenty of detail there. I'm happy to take any questions on aspects of the project.
Okay, Neil, thanks very much. Paul.
Thank you. Yeah, I've just got a couple of comments. I want to thank officers for bringing this report forward into the trust and the work that's went into this project in the final business case. To say that the villagers in Kitman's been waiting a long time for this is a significant understatement. This project was originally intended to be the first City Deal initiative undertaken in Inverclyde as part of the Glasgow City Region Deal, but it's instead become one of the last to commence. And I want to express my deep-felt gratitude to the villagers of Kitman's Bay, as well as Kitman's Bay Community Council, who have tirelessly campaigned for this project. And while the project is aimed at unlocking investment for the villagers, it represents a critical step towards addressing long-standing safety issues at the Inverkit Junction. I also want to acknowledge, in fact, my predecessors, former councillors, Rory and Rebecca, who have championed this project alongside the local community for many years, and I'm certainly pleased to see that it's finally come to fruition. This project represents a significant investment in Inverkit, and it should be right that we know that it's only happening because this council took the initiative to include it in the City Deal project. Without this decision, no improvement would have been made because the Scottish Government agency responsible for the A78 Transport Scotland didn't consider this junction to be a major accident hotspot. Despite numerous obstacles that have been put in place, put in the path of this project from Scottish Power to Transport Scotland, our officers have persevered, worked closely with local community to bring this project to where it is today. And I want to put on record my heartfelt thanks and those of the villagers to our officers for bringing this project to where it is now. Their unwavering support from advocating for the initial roundabout at the junction alongside villagers to achieving the solution that we now have today has been invaluable. My only question for officers is, after approval today, how fast do we expect approval from City Deal Cabinet?
I never thought I'd hear the word fast when we're talking about Inverkit. Stuart.
The convener, subject to committee approval today, will engage with PMO. Because of the increase in costs and the fact that we are delivering a T-junction breaker rather than a roundabout, we just need to ensure that we understand whether it's a delegated permission with the director of the city region or whether it needs to go to full cabinet, and that will define the timescales. Just in terms of clarification, in case there's any required, the changes in the design have been brought about in order to satisfy the requirements of Transport Scotland. So it is an optimal solution that Transport Scotland have identified. You'll recall that the original project was a roundabout Main Street Inverkit. That changed to be a set of signalised junctions. You'll recall that it was a 5-leg roundabout at the bottom of Spey Avenue, and that's changed. And there have been so many iterations, as you appreciate, it has been an interesting project to try and deliver. So we believe that we now have a design solution which Transport Scotland are happy with, and that's in that basis that we're going forward.
Okay, Paul. Yeah. Stephen.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Like Councillor Cassidy said, it's been a long road to get here, excuse the pun. I'm delighted we are now finally at this stage, and I'm sure that the City Region Cabinet and officers will expedite the matter as soon as possible. But just to pursue that point around the Brewacre Junction, so the solution now is a T-junction, so I'm presuming that's the best solution. Rather than it's the most cost-effective solution, it's the best solution. And maybe just if we could explain why it's the best solution. And secondly, just in terms of the sort of installation of the new traffic signals and the staggered pedestrian crossing. So the report says, and Neil mentioned in his presentation, they don't need to be required until there's 200 units occupied on site. That, I mean, we could be years away from 200 units being occupied on site. So where do they fall within this particular project? Are they part of this project, or are they to be provided as part of a further project and with a further cost at a later date?
Neil?
Yeah, through convener. Yes, so the identification of the best option in the business case is from a cost and operational perspective. So it meets both criteria, and that's why it was taken forward. The decision on that, from a technical perspective, and I don't know whether Eddie might be able to comment any further, but is just in terms of the accessibility arrangements to the site being such that that can be handled through a signalised T junction in time to come. So that's the arrangement that's been developed through testing technical best performance in agreement with Transport Scotland. In terms of the putting signalised junction in at the 200th dwelling, that's just again from a technical perspective that at that point in time the capacity of the junction will require to be managed through signalised junction rather than flowing as it will until that point. And the costs are not inclusive of that. The design is inclusive of that. So at a future stage, a developer contribution may be required to install those lights for any future development of the site.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just in terms of clarity, the breaker junction that we're talking about is a new breaker junction, so it's not at the existing location. It's more towards the cottages. So the only requirement for connectivity with that breaker junction is when the distributed road that runs through the site linking to the Belfast State becomes live. So Councillor McCabe's absolutely correct that the implementation of those lights will only take place once that distributor road becomes live. But in terms of the immediate works, the signalised junctions at Main Street and into the marina form the majority of the works. And clearly that, from a public safety perspective, that's the area that's caused greatest cause of concern. But I would remind Councillor Cassidy that that is a byproduct of the project in terms of safety. It's the reason that we're doing the works to Main Street and Marina is to facilitate the development of the Inverkirk Power Station site.
Yeah, thanks very much. We're just actually to put on record. So certainly not somebody there, and not technical reasons that's been given of why we're doing certain things. But also the closure of the northbound slip road has always been a negative from our point of view, as we believe constituents feel that's the most appropriate entrance onto the road. Obviously somebody will bamboozle me by technical details of why it's not. So it is interesting that the outcome of further design development and transport modelling, I'm not too sure what those means that we didn't get the slip road remains. We've now got a T-junction. So our group's disappointed, but it will be overcome by science if I give that as a question. So I choose to make it as a statement.
Okay, Stuart was just ready to jump in there, but okay, so can we agree recommendations?
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay, thank you. Okay, item number 8 is infrastructure ready for Scotland planning. Neil.
Thanks again, convener. So this paper is seeking to approve a draft consultation response to a current government Scottish Government consultation on potential infrastructure levy. The consultation is not on legislation, it's pre-legislation consultation stage, so it's gathering views on the potential for an infrastructure levy to be collected from development proposals. For clarity, the levy wouldn't, in government's view, be proposed to replace Section 75s that are attached and directly related to development that's generated through planning applications. It would be an additional developer contribution on top of any other arrangements that exist. In terms of the questionnaire, it sets out, as government consultations usually do, areas on which feedback is sought. And as I said, it's not proposed legislation, it's earlier than that, so there isn't necessarily detail on all aspects of the of how it would operate to meaningfully respond to. And on that basis, the office drafted a response which is effectively a high-level position for the council to take, recognising some points which I'll cover just for noting. So firstly, recognising that funding for infrastructure would be welcome. Noting that it should be recognised that in markets that are less buoyant in terms of prevalence of development or higher land values, the levy could be seen as a deterrent to development, and therefore viability must be considered in the design of any scheme. Noting that further in regions less able to support developer contributions, there could end up being a divergence in fortunes of those regions as opposed to those that are supported with development of buoyant development markets, which are more able to and capable to, and competition exists to develop and pay for sites. And therefore the point is made that the government should reflect and equalise this so as not to introduce economic divergence between regions. And then finally, the point is made around the collection burden should be factored into any funds, and in terms of accounting for resources, so it shouldn't effectively be an additional burden on planning authorities. And that's kind of the headline points. There's some more matters of detail covered in the response, some of which we just don't know enough information to know whether the technicalities of operation would have a positive, negative, and neutral impact on the council area. So it's repeatedly drawn it back to high level principles. Again, no further comments to make. The report sets it out and includes the consultation response proposed. But I'm happy to take questions on any element of that. Again, thanks, Commissioner.
Okay, no, thanks. Chris, one first.
Yeah, so just on this, my reading of it, I just, correct me if I'm wrong, is that officers believe that the ultimate decision or strategy for applying this level should remain at a local level or authority level. Is that understanding correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, through you, Commissioner. I think in terms of if funds are to be generated, I think the principle of local fiscal control is ideal. However, the principle is referenced in there that it shouldn't necessarily be the case that the buoyant regions are able to generate significant funds and therefore pay for investment proposals in authorities that have got less ability to generate funds effectively get left out. So sort of a bit of both, I suppose. But that's posed as a response back to government to think about in the design of the scheme to ensure a fair system's imposed.
Okay, no, thank you. Stephen?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I don't have any issues in principle with the response. It's obviously a professional response, and it's an early stage in the process here, and I'm sure there'll be political discussions at a national level over the coming years around this. But to some extent, I share the concerns that Neil has alluded to around sort of the impact of these type of levies. I mean, we're sort of moving in the direction of give councils lots of extra powers to raise extra money to compensate for the fact that the grant's been cut every year, etc. And obviously we've had all the restrictions in council taxes as well. But the reality is that these type of levies are tending to favour the bigger cities. They're tending to favour the more buoyant areas. And if we take the example of the visitor levy, the overnight levy, Edinburgh's talking about raising £50 million from that levy a year eventually. We don't even know whether it's viable for us to even introduce a overnight visitor levy at this point in time without doing a cost benefit analysis. And we've seen through sort of parking legislation, the introduction of the limit zones, that councils can generate significant amount of money through parking charges. The bigger councils can generate significant amounts of money, whereas the smaller councils are struggling to even cover their costs with some of these initiatives. So the reality is that, yeah, it's a a good idea probably in principle, but we need to ensure that smaller councils like ourselves don't lose out from these type of levies.
Okay, so thank you. Anything else? No, we agree recommendations? Yeah. Okay, item number 9 is the self-built plots, Jefferson Avenue in Kilmacombe. Neil.
Thanks again, convener. So this report is around the marketing strategy for the self-build plots that are at Livingston Avenue in Kilmacombe. The proposal is the marketing strategy is in effect a reduction of the offers over asking price for unsold plots within the development site. The site itself comprises of 6 plots at Kilmacombe. 2 have been sold, as is highlighted in the report, and 1 has seen construction completed on site. In terms of the history of the site, there's been previous reductions in market values through a previous approval from Environment Regeneration a few years ago, and this is a further incremental reduction in an effort to stimulate interest in the proposal. The proposal is a theoretical impact and capital value of the site, which is referenced in the finance section of the report, and this is estimated based on the value of the lower end of the offers over asking price. However, as members will understand, plot negotiations will dictate any final value, and it's also worth noting that stimulating interest in the development site will also have an impact on the final capital value of the site. And just finally, just to confirm that the proposals come through following engagement with and advice from the council's marketing agent for the site. Nothing further to add on the paper, and happy to take questions, convener.
Okay, Stephen.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with reducing the sale values of the sites at this point in time, but we've been at this for a long time, and I've said that more than once today. I just think we have to place a limit on how long we're going to continue to market these plots for the particular purpose that they were produced for. I would certainly expect there to be a further report back to this committee within 12 months to tell us how successful this has been. And if we're not, and probably there needs to be discussion in the intervening period, because it'll become apparent within 12 months whether we've been successful or not, about a plan B. We simply can't leave these vacant plots undeveloped for the next 20 years. We've sold a development here that there's going to be 7 houses built on that. 2 families have bought into that. 1 has built a house and 1 recently got revised planning permission to build a house, and obviously we're hoping that will go forward. But we can't leave 2 houses built on a site and the other site's not. So we need to look at alternative uses of the plots if the marketing strategy is not successful. And it could be, for example, specialist type housing accommodation. There's certainly a demand for special needs type housing that potentially that could be a suitable site for. So happy for us to continue to market for a further period of time, but we need to ensure there's a report back, and if we're not successful in selling these sites, we should look at alternative uses of the plots to ensure that the development is completed.
Okay, so thanks. Chris.
Yeah, I think I agree with a lot with what Steve was saying there. When I was looking at the paper as well, I was wondering, we've actually got 2 out of the plots sold, you've got some plots. I'm just thinking, is there an opportunity of scale here? I know there's going to be self-built plots, but in actual fact, what we're interested in getting is getting people in. The original idea of these plots was to get people into the area. If you go way back, slightly certainly before my time being in council, but I'm just wondering, is it something that might attract? Is it possible for somebody to put an offer in on 7 or 9 properties if it is a low volume house builder and try and get them turned around as well? Is that something that's possible in the current marketing strategy, or are we still really talking about doing a bit like that? But I'm just looking at it. If there's sort of like 5 plots there, well, that might interest somebody who's a low volume housing builder to actually get in and do the job and get out. And that might give us a bit more of an opportunity to get this across the line.
Sure.
through your convener. To date, it's been for individuals, Councillor Curran, and there's a limitation in terms of not a volume or small volume builder participating in the process. Clearly, it's within the committee's gift to decide otherwise, but I think officer's recommendation at the moment is to consider the individual builders, because when this project was first implemented, it was about, it had to be people coming into the area for the first time, and then that was relaxed, and then it was people within the area being available the opportunity, and now we're reducing it. I think this is the second time we've reduced prices. So I recognise the comments and frustrations by members that there's been a lack of progress in this, and I would suggest that we give it the 12 months that's been suggested to see if it's further that can take place in order to have self-built plots and then consider a plan B.
Thanks, Mr. Premier. Yeah, I have to say myself the frustration that Councillor McCabe has laid before committee. My question, and having this a question this time of it, is where do we get the 9% reduction? Because there's the market value here is a challenge. So if we were to reduce even further than 9%, if that was committee's wish, where would the intelligence tell us that we would actually have a better opportunity of seeing these 5 plots developed? Because the frustration is felt by constituents within that ward. I'm assuming there's an upkeep for the councils, there's a cost to the council to keep these weed-free and safe. I don't know what the technical term would be, but 9% drop is not a lot, and I'm interested to hear officers why you've settled on 9 and not a larger percentage.
Sure, 9%.
Obviously, we've got a company engaged in the marketing of these premises, and it's their recommendations that have come forward. This was originally a Riverside Pipeline project, which the council had originally promoted, and clearly we've underwritten the costs associated with that, so we allowed Riverside Pipeline to walk away from the obligations of income stream. So if we don't achieve the values that are identified in the report, then that becomes pressure elsewhere within the council's budgets. So I think that based on the recommendations, and it's not council officers that are setting the values, it's the marketing agents that are setting the values. We have to rely on their expertise, but clearly it's a decision from members if they wish, but then there is an implication associated with it.
Can I confirm then, is if we take a 9% or greater cut, does this go back to PNR? Is this a reduction in income for the council? Is there a process here, or is this a decision for this committee to make?
So we have to go back to PNR.
I'm content.
Okay, can we agree recommendations? Yeah. Okay, item number 10 is the Nature Restoration Fund proposed projects. Stuart, you want to
Yeah, thanks, Convener. The report before you was tended with our proposals for the Nature Restoration Fund. Earlier this week, we were advised by Scottish Government that the grant for the Nature Restoration Fund had been withdrawn in its entirety. We hope, our indications are that the capital fund will be available next year, so members have an opportunity either that we withdraw the report today and don't consider it, or the committee could consider the report in terms of the direction of travel the report is identifying, and should funds become available, then that would be those would be the projects that would get first go in terms of any future funding. Happy for members' opinions.
Yeah, it was very disappointing that this funding has been withdrawn. Convener. It's what happens when you freeze council tax, don't set aside enough money for pay, and then have to go raiding pots of money to get the money to make a revised pay offer to staff. I mean, I think the general direction of travel here is the right direction, and I'm comfortable with what's in the report, but clearly some of these projects won't be able to commence until we get confirmation of funding next year, if indeed that funding is confirmed next year, because I think the challenges on the public finances are going to be even greater next year. So I'm not convinced we will see the funding reinstated next year. But I'm generally content with the proposals.
I just want clarity there. I thought a contribution from the director was that all projects would be frozen until funding become available. Even Councillor McCabe seemed to think we could start some, unless I misheard him. So all projects would be frozen. And if committee thought this was the right idea, you keep it in your bag for should future funding come up.
Well, basically save Stuart Wright a report this time and share them.
You can do a short report.
That's right.
Well,
Can we just to clarify that there clearly might be alternative sources of funding for some of these projects. So that's the only reason I made that comment.
Paul?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Yeah, I'm noticed my disappointment as well. Just as much as Councillor McCabe has, you've seen this, you've funding cut, you particularly to the proposed new projects, you won sort of in Mavward and Wims Bay that would have been incredibly welcomed by my constituents, and the other Cornwallis as well, which a majority of it was in Mavward as well. That would be welcome improvements to the nature trail up there. So it's disappointing that these projects won't be able to be taken forward this financial year. But I do think that the director of travel, the officers have got here, was the right one, and I think it's something that we should keep in place. And if funding does become available through other means, take it forward, or you'll have that ready for getting funding next year. But as Councillor McCabe said, that's an issue. We might not see the funding next year as well. So hopefully we will.
Okay, Chris.
Yeah, I think that that's an important aspect of developing I wouldn't say green environment, because I think what they call it isn't in place, but we do need to get back to a more natural environment. So I think it is important we do have these projects. It's good that it's been identified. What it also says is how we can hardwire these ideas into some of our other projects as well, because obviously we have opportunities within the project. We've talked about the levelling up funding today, and we've talked about assisting greening, etc. So it's about how we can look at that, about is there opportunities within these projects to bring certain elements of these through as well. And I think just that sort of thinking about that. So when we get the funding from one particular source, we can utilise that, which would be great when this is fully funded released. But also look about how we sort of change our views about what the grassing over of being would look like. There's possibly opportunities to try and bring a little bit more of the environment into these aspects of it as well.
Not a board can.
Peter, would you like to summarise what we're agreeing to here?
Yeah, so just to clarify, Stuart, would your intention be then that we seek the committee's approval of these projects progress if the funding is made available through this source next year or from any source? Would you want to bring a report back as an alternative source?
This source initially, however, so alternative sources become available, then we look to maximise that funding. And then for any, if there are then substitute projects brought forward, for anything that's not achieved, there are alternative funds for the function.
So for sake of clarity, then, the committee would be noting and approve the proposals identified, and agree to officers progressing those projects should future nature restoration funding or alternative funding be made available, and if further reports on proposed projects are presented to the committee.
Okay, happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, item number 11 is the firework control zone update. Neil?
Thanks again, convener. Final one from me. So the paper provides an update that is to the effect that it's not intended to introduce any specific firework control zones this year. The ability to introduce control zones was created by Scottish Government. However, the position to not introduce control zones is reached by officers having taken a review of 2023 bonfire night activities in communication with in consultation with a range of community safety partners. A website was developed to set up a mechanism to allow community requests for such zones to be put forward, but no such requests have been forthcoming. The position obviously is one that can be monitored, reviewed on an annual basis, and so that would be something we can do. In terms of the wider position, it's in alignment with Police Scotland National Memorandum of Understanding on this matter, which has been developed since the introduction of the provisions by the Scottish Government. And just finally, and it's referenced in the paper, that there were a limited number of instances where authorities have considered moving forward with blanket bans, and those include the City of Glasgow and Edinburgh councils. It's the officer's understanding that zones can't be applied at broad regions from how the government have set this up, and so that's our position on it at present from an officer's perspective. But just an update on what the paper's saying is that in recent weeks, I think members might be aware, but the proposal to undertake a blanket ban by Edinburgh City Council was not pursued. They've decided not to do that. So just wanted to provide that update given the content that's included in the paper. Happy to take any questions on the report and nothing further to add, convener.
Okay, thanks. Stephen?
Yeah, thanks, convener. I'm content with the recommendation in the report. I think in Glasgow and Edinburgh, it was more enthusiastic councillors who were looking for citywide bans than the officers. I'm particularly interested, I suppose, in the position of Police Scotland, since Police Scotland cover the whole of Scotland, albeit in different divisions. And there was coverage in the media last week, I think it was, in terms of Renfrewshire Council are looking at potentially some consulting in some zones, not a Renfrewshire-wide zone, but some specific zones. And obviously we share the same police division as Renfrewshire. So I'm presuming in terms of the view of the police, it will be based on the perceived risk of incidents happening. So their view at this point in time in Inverclyde is they don't see a risk of major disorder, etc. But presumably they'll be consulted in Renfrewshire as well and feed into the Renfrewshire process.
Thanks through you, convener. Yes, I think your understanding's correct as I understand it. So it's based on perception of risk, but that's informed by incidents that did or didn't take place, and particularly on peak times at bonfire night, and also on reflection on sort of demands from a community perspective, and incidents where it's brought up that there might be issues. So yeah, I couldn't obviously speak for our neighbouring counterparts in terms of how they've engaged with the same Police Scotland division, but we've certainly had that liaison to inform that position and are coming from the same angle as Police Scotland in this respect.
Thank you.
Paul?
Yeah, thanks, Pierre. I suppose you look at this, it's interesting that we haven't had anywhere that's came back to say that a fireworks control zone is needed. I think last year we had a report to Police and Fire Scrutiny Panel in September, and in the report officers had highlighted the obvious candidate for a potential first firework control zone has been Larkfield, which is in my ward. I'm just interested if officers have some commentary as to why nothing seems to be progressed there, because I know it is a persistent issue that's raised by residents who are up there.
Thanks through your community. I'm not aware of the specific details of the engagement with the teams and the community safety partners around specific areas. Only sort of macro level outcome that there's no proposed zones. What as I say, the report highlights, and I think it's of merit to do this, is to review it on an annual basis. So if there was an opportunity to tease out that further community engagement or input, then we will have opportunities to do that.
Well,
thanks, Camilla. I think it's probably really important that we do keep this under review and that there's an evidence base on an ongoing basis to decide where we go and what decisions we take. I think public opinion is a really important part of that evidence base. And Neil, did this convenience a question probably to Neil, just the basis of what he said, which is about the website. What, can I just double check? I might ask something after this if that's okay, but what's the function of the website in this process?
So, thanks through you, convener. The report is highlighting at can just call the report up. Paragraph 4.3 is indicated, and it includes a link that a dedicated firework control page was developed in early 2024 with a dedicated mailbox for requests around the control zones. And no requests were received to that mailbox through the promotion of the website.
So coming back in, if we're saying we want to be evidence-based, and public opinion is an important part of that evidence-based, is to keep things under review. Is that the only mechanism by which we want people to be making comments about this, or is that the only mechanism that we will take as canon, if you like? And if it's really how you want all information to be funneled about this issue, then I think we really need to promote it well. Otherwise, it's not going to work for us because people aren't going to know what's there and they won't use it. Other than that, if there are wider ways that we can gather information from the public, then it would be useful to know how that will be indeed gathered.
Yeah, through you, convener, just in response to that, it's not the only mechanism, it's a mechanism and one by which we can promote the means for community groups to come back in. However, obviously this is an area that's that creates liaison between community safety planners, and certainly within the public protection team and the council, if there's issues raised and aware, it would feed into that wider intelligence on that, and I would imagine that will go for the range of partners. I mean, it's absolutely wouldn't be any issue to sort of promote this on a wider basis so that there's an awareness of means and mechanisms to use this particular facility, but it's not the only one.
Thank you.
Okay, you can get a kettle on now, okay, a wee break. Thanks very much for that. Can we agree recommendations? Okay, item 12 is number 5 transport input in Wednesday Village Centre, 20 mile an hour speed limit, orders 2022. The reporter's recommendations, Paul.
Myself.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so thanks again. 4 views were proposed speed limit orders in the villages in Gilbert and Mains Bay, and the recommendation for benefit of the CPA following the objection received during the public consultation period. The backgrounds in the report and the other orders from Cooper, Glasgow, and Greener were approved early in 2023 and effective since summer 2023. And the reporter's recommendations are set out in detail in the report in the appendices. And they also include street maps showing the areas supposed to be covered by speed limit orders. That's the approved recommendations have instead of questions.
Okay, thank you. From now on, Paul, don't get away from that, Rob.
Yeah, thanks, Spear. It's great to finally have this report back. It's disappointing that we had to wait over a year for it to come back, and unfortunately, those colleagues will remember it was an elected member that maintained an objection to this, which forced it to go out to an independent reporter. And I'm glad that after that we changed the council policy on that, so this won't happen again in the future. Of course, this has been something that's getting asked me by constituents for the last good few months about when we were going to see this happen. So it's great that we've got it before us today. My question to officers is in terms of timescales for us getting this in place. How fast from agreement today can we have it in place and then speed up that process?
For you, Convener, I mean, looking at the last orders that were agreed, it was March, I think the committee last year, and they were in place by summer. So I think we hope to do no worse than that for these two.
Okay.
Thanks, Convener. Happy to support the recommendations in the report, but we have had a number of 20 mile an hour zone, formal 20 mile an hour zones in place now for a period of time in other town and village centres. And I can mainly comment on the one in Kilmacombe around the village centre of Kilmacombe. And I have to say, particularly traffic travelling along Port Glasgow Road and then on to Bridgeway Road, lots of them are ignoring the 20 mile an hour zone and going significantly above 20 mile an hour. Some of them probably going above 30 mile an hour. And we've got the signage there, we've got the road signs, but I think there's more needed in terms of just bringing the attention to those who are travelling along these roads that they're coming to a 20-mile-an-hour zone. One of the sides is actually obscured by trees as you approach it as well. I just think there's more that we need to do, and I think we need to also work with the police and ask the police to try and take some effective action, because we all want to reduce traffic, and 20-mile-an-hour zones are a good thing in principle, and obviously the plan is to roll them out further, moving to around schools and then wider. But if people simply ignore the 20-mile-an-hour zones, they're not doing much good. So I would ask us to look at the effectiveness of the zones that we've put in place and see what we can do to ensure that people are actually adhering to the 20-mile-an-hour zones.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, can we agree with that?
Yeah.
Sorry, Graham, didn't see your hand.
No problems. So I suppose on behalf of the elected member, we put objection, and we're not content with the report before us. And obviously I can't associate myself with Councillor McKee's comment this time that we all want to reduce traffic. That's certainly not my issue, to reduce traffic, certainly to make speeding traffic reduce in certain places. But I just want to put on record that we are not content that this report has been tabled, but we do not intend to make a motion to move it.
Okay, can we agree recommendations?
Agreed.
Okay, like said, Graham. Okay, item number 13 is the management rules for parks. Number 5, Emma.
Yes, thank you, convener. This report relates to the 2024 Inverclyde Council management rules for parks. In Inverclyde, the E&R committee considered the draft proposed rules at its meeting of the 14th of March 2024, and at that meeting the committee approved the draft rules and authorised officers to carry out the statutory consultation. That statutory consultation has now taken place for a period of 1 month from the 15th of April, to the 15th of May. In that time, no objections or comments were received, although there have been some minor amendments suggested by officers, and these are shown in Appendix 2 to the report. And the committee is therefore now asked to approve the rules and remit the matter to the next meeting of the full council in order that the rules can be formally made. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Emma. Stuart, you want to come as well?
Convener, just through you, it's not a material conservation grounds, the report will just draft whether the reference is made to corporate director should be director.
Okay, Stephen.
Apologies, convener, that's a legacy hand.
We could change. John.
Thank you, convener. But just one minor point. If you look at Appendix 1 and you go to 4.6 and 4.7, we can see that that is repeated in the Appendix 2. However, on the amendment, we will also see that there are further 4.6 and 4.7. 4.6 obviously being the litter and 4.7 selling goods. But when we look at the amendment, we can also see that under 4.6 we have alcohol and drugs, and under 4.7 there is fires, etc. So they will obviously have to be renumbered.
You okay with that, Emma? Can that be done?
Okay, yeah, happy to take into account the numbering. I'll have a look at that.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, can we agree recommendations?
Yeah, it's I think track changes as I came when it comes to that sort of stuff. It's headings are a bit difficult. Just on the clarification by Mr. Jameson about being director, would that be a housekeeping matter then to just remove the terminology corporate before it goes in?
Yeah. That's right.
So through you can get prepared for role of advisor, being a lawyer here, but we've defined the term corporate director to mean the relevant corporate director of the council responsible for enforcement of these rules, or any person to whom he is authorised to determine applications. So I would probably leave the term corporate director for the rules. I'll just change my definition.
Okay.
Okay. Are you happy with that? Yeah. What do you want to come in?
You're not a lawyer.
Okay, can we give you recommendations?
Agreed.
Item 14 is Items for noting, Strathclyde Partnership for Transport Annual Report 23 to 24. There's a endearing picture of one of our councillors on page 136 of the report. Which is very good. You can pass on my compliments to him. Any comments on SPT? Jim?
Yeah, thanks. Just a very quick comment. Yeah, we're very thankful to Councillor Wilson because he does advocate well and so he's fascinating. He's done it over the years. And by that nature, you know, we can see where the amount of money that's been spent by the SPT building cloud is a lot more great now than it wasn't 10, 15 years ago. So I think that's probably a lot of student at least. Good so it's really just worth to say, you know, thanks for this, spending money down in the place, please do have some more, something more. And also from the Councillor Wilson for being an advocate. That's all.
Chris?
I think it's Stephen's first.
Stephen?
Thanks, Kevin. I mean, it's good to. I was going to praise Councillor Honest, I promise, but I don't need to do it now since others have done it for me. It's good, obviously, to see the investment that's coming through SPT, and we obviously benefit in other ways through SPT. It's not just about the investment, that they do subsidise various services as well. But I note in 3.4 that no capital funding is available for 2024-25, and I'm presuming that's because the Scottish Government didn't give SPT any capital funding for 24-25. So I would ask officers, what is the implications of that? I know, for example, 3.3, the design for the extension of High Home Park and Ride has been completed, but I'm presuming that means we won't be actually extending the Park and Ride next year because there's no money to do that.
Yeah, for you can that there was an indicative list of projects and officers that prepared in anticipation of there being capital funding, and yes, it means that those will be placed on hold until such time as that funding is available again.
And this is going to be a current theme over the next period. Stephen, you okay with that?
Yeah, I thought that would be the case. Obviously, we hope that funding will be available next year, but it is disappointing, obviously, that we can't progress those projects this year.
Chris?
Yeah, I think that we have had the benefit of getting a lot of projects in Inverclyde. I think maybe towards the tail end of the year when there's maybe been an underspending in the capital budget, and I think David has done a good job of getting funding down to Inverclyde. I think looking at the report, it's quite clear that there has been a lot of money spent in capital on an SPT, on the subway and on other aspects that require a lot of capital investment, and that will also have an impact. Because as we know, we effectively elected to SPT with respect to the projects they take on board. I think looking forward to it, you see there's also other projects being planned here, which is the Glasgow Clyde Metro, which again is going to be a high value capital project, which again is great. But yeah, this is also a decision for the SPT board, but it's where they see the most value being spent with respect to ongoing transport within our region. Obviously, where's getting bank involved? Is it in the subway, which has been a lot of money? I think it's going to be over £200 million spent in the subway, or is it looking at how we actually integrate our bus travel and do junction improvements to try and get that that joined up journeys throughout the whole of the area? So it's an interesting job to do. I think David does it well. So it's interesting to see what to do in coming in the next future years with the. As was being said here, there is going to be a continued, unfortunately, it's a continued rollback of capital wasn't decisions made elsewhere in this chamber. But it's important to see, well, how do we then spend that money more appropriately? Is it in the nice shiny stuff, or is it on down at the grassroots and trying to get the transportation network working at a much more local level?
Okay, can we note the reports? Yeah. Okay, last items to help